She smiled at his funeral photo before it even existed. She reported him missing, with dry eyes and a rehearsed voice. And while an entire state searched wetlands and fields for a father of 3, the woman who reported him gone was allegedly lying naked in another man's bed, describing, in chilling detail, exactly how she says she put a bullet in her sleeping husband's skull. This is the story they don't want you to hear from her side of the pillow. Welcome back to Brian's Criminal Unmasking. My name is Brian, and today we are going deep into the case of Jennifer Gledhill, not as a grieving wife, not as a devoted mother of 3, but allegedly as a woman who traded her family for an affair, and traded her husband's life so she would never have to choose between the two. Before we go one more sentence deeper, I need 3 things from you, and I need them right now, not at the end. Hit that subscribe button. Hit it like you mean it. Then drop a like on this video, because the algorithm decides whether this story reaches the people who need to hear it, and it decides based on what you do in the next 10 seconds. And finally, comment one word below. Affair. Just that, one word. I want to see how many of you already sense where this is going before I even say another sentence. All right, let's unmask this. Picture the house first. Cottonwood Heights, Utah. A quiet, manicured suburb tucked against the mountains outside Salt Lake City, the kind of place where a family of 5 could believably be called the ideal American household. There was a husband, a soldier, a member of a special operations unit with the Utah National Guard, a man named Matthew Johnson, 51 years old. There was a wife, Jennifer Gledhill, and there were 3 children who called that house home. From the outside, this was not a broken family. This was a family with a flag in the yard and a man who wore the uniform of his country. But allegedly, behind the closed bedroom door of that house, something else was growing. Something Matthew Johnson did not know about. Something that would end with his blood soaking through a carpet and his body vanishing from the face of the earth so completely that to this day he has never been found. Let's talk about the woman at the center of this, because this is where the case gets its teeth. Prosecutors say the marriage between Jennifer and Matthew had been falling apart since the summer of 2024. In July of that year, Jennifer filed for divorce. On paper, that is nothing unusual. Marriages end every day, and filing for divorce is not a crime. It is a legal right. But here is where it gets interesting, and here is where I want you to lean in close. In August, just 1 month after filing for divorce, Jennifer went to court and requested a protective order against her own husband. She wanted the court to believe she needed protection from Matthew. But according to reporting on the case, the judge reviewed her own text messages and found something very different from what she was claiming. Instead of messages showing fear, the judge reportedly found messages that were, in his own assessment, demeaning and manipulative. Messages that painted a very different picture of who was actually controlling that relationship. The protective order was denied. Now sit with that for a second, because I think this is the first thread in the whole tapestry. A woman files for divorce. A woman then tries to paint her soon-to-be ex-husband as dangerous, as someone she needs a legal shield against. And the court looks at her own words and essentially says, this narrative does not hold up. If you are someone who studies true crime the way I do, you know that this pattern, laying a foundation of victimhood before anything violent has even happened, is something investigators and prosecutors take note of. It does not prove anything on its own. But it raises a question that hangs over the rest of this story like smoke. Was Jennifer already building a narrative, already trying to control how people would see her, months before her husband disappeared? Because here is what nobody in that courtroom knew in August of 2024. While the protective order request was being denied, Jennifer Gledhill was, according to investigators, deep into a secret relationship. An affair. A double life, running underneath the life Matthew thought he was living. She was a wife, she was a mother of 3 young children, And allegedly, she was also someone else entirely behind her husband's back, someone spending time with another man while her husband worked, trained, and believed his marriage, however strained, was still his marriage to fight for. For a while, Matthew did not know. Imagine that. Imagine being a soldier, a man trained to detect threats, to read situations, to protect the people around him. And yet the one threat closest to him, inside his own bedroom, was one he could not see coming. But eventually, in September of 2024, he found out. He discovered the affair. And according to the case, this discovery led to a confrontation between the two of them. A heated, angry exchange. The kind of fight that happens when years of suspicion finally get confirmed out loud. Court documents describe an argument on September 20th, 2024, in which the two of them fought, reportedly because Matthew had learned that Jennifer had been sleeping with someone else. Now, here is where I want you to really understand the timeline, because the timeline is everything in this case. This was not a slow-burning resentment that exploded after years. This was a matter of a single day. They fought on September 20th, and less than 24 hours later, on the night of September 21st, 2024, prosecutors allege that while Matthew Johnson lay asleep in the bed they still shared, Jennifer Gledhill picked up his own 9mm handgun and shot him in the head. Let that sink in. Not a struggle, not a moment of chaotic self-defense in the middle of a fight. Allegedly, a man asleep, defenseless, unaware, shot with his own weapon by the woman lying beside him. If the allegations are true, this was not an act of passion in the heat of an argument. This was an act carried out after the argument had already ended, after the house had gone quiet, after Matthew had let his guard down enough to close his eyes. And what happened next is, frankly, the part of this case that turns my stomach every time I go back through it, because what allegedly happened next was not panic. It was procedure. According to the charges filed against her, Jennifer did not call for help. She did not call police. Instead, she allegedly began the process of making her husband disappear. She is accused of placing his body into a rooftop storage container, the kind of hard-shell case people strap to the top of an SUV for road trips and camping gear. She allegedly slid that container down the stairs of their own home. Then, she loaded it into the back of the family minivan. The same vehicle prosecutors say that had likely once carried her children to school and soccer practice was allegedly repurposed on this night to carry the body of their father. She did not stop there. Prosecutors allege that she smashed Matthew's cell phone, destroying it, and then drove his own pickup truck to a neighborhood near their home and abandoned it there, staging the scene to make it look as though Matthew himself might have simply driven off and vanished on his own. Then, according to the case against her, she got back into that minivan, and she drove north out of Cottonwood Heights, out of Salt Lake County, into Davis County. And there, in the dark, prosecutors allege she dug a hole and she buried her husband in a shallow, unmarked grave. Think about the logistics of that for one moment. This was not a spur-of-the-moment cover-up improvised by someone in shock. This was allegedly a woman who moved a body down a staircase, packed it into a vehicle, drove across county lines, dug a grave, and returned home, all within a matter of hours, all without a single call for help, all without a single tear shed to a neighbor. And when she got home, the cleanup began. Investigators say that in the days that followed, Jennifer bleached the walls of the master bedroom. She worked to remove carpet stains where blood had allegedly pooled beneath the bed. And in a detail that I think tells you everything about the coldness required to pull something like this off, she ordered a brand new mattress. Phone records reportedly show that mattress was ordered on September 24th and arrived just 2 days later, replacing the one that investigators would later find had been sitting above a large, dark, blood-stained section of carpet the entire time. She was sleeping allegedly in a freshly cleaned bedroom on a brand new mattress in the same house where her husband's blood had soaked into the floor beneath her feet, while the Utah National Guard was beginning to wonder why one of their own had not shown up for work. Because that is how this all first came to light. It was not Jennifer who raised the alarm first, at least not right away. On September 25, 2024, the Utah National Guard contacted police because Matthew Johnson, a respected member of a special operations unit, had simply stopped showing up. Soldiers do not just vanish. That absence triggered concern immediately. It was 3 days after that, on September 28th, that Jennifer herself finally reported her husband missing, telling police she had not seen or heard from him since their argument on September 20th. She told investigators, according to charging documents, that Matthew had said he would be gone for about a week and told her not to call him. A convenient story. A story that bought her time. A story that, on its surface, sounded almost plausible for a strained marriage on the edge of divorce. But stories like that do not hold up forever, and this one began to collapse because of the one person Jennifer had trusted with the truth. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. The affair that allegedly gave Jennifer a motive to kill her husband is also, according to investigators, the exact same affair that brought her down. Here is what prosecutors say happened. The man Jennifer was allegedly seeing, described in court filings only as an informant, a witness, someone she had been secretly involved with, later came forward to police. And what he described was not a rumor, it was allegedly a confession, delivered to him directly by Jennifer herself. According to the charges, on September 22nd, just 1 day after the killing, Jennifer went to this man's house. And while she was there, she allegedly told him that Matthew had come home on the night of the 20th and confronted her, furious, because he had learned she had been sleeping with someone else. And then, according to the informant, Jennifer told him what happened after that fight. She allegedly admitted that she shot Matthew as he slept. She allegedly described putting his body into that rooftop storage container. She allegedly described sliding it down the stairs. She allegedly described loading it into the minivan, driving north, and burying him in a shallow grave. She allegedly told him she smashed his phone and hid his truck to make it look as though he had simply left. And here is the detail that I think separates this case from so many others we cover on this channel. The informant told police that he noticed bruises across Jennifer's body, real, physical bruises. And when he asked her about them, she reportedly told him they came from the physical effort of moving her husband's body and cleaning up the aftermath. Think about that exchange. A woman showing a lover the marks left on her skin from dragging her husband's corpse down a staircase, explaining it away as casually as if she were describing a hard day at the gym. This is the moment where, if this account is accurate, we get a glimpse into something genuinely unsettling about how Jennifer allegedly processed what she had done. Because, according to the case against her, she did not describe Matthew with grief. She did not describe him as her husband, the father of her children, a man she once loved enough to marry. Reports from the investigation describe her allegedly referring to him as not a person anymore. And in a detail that has stuck with true crime followers of this case since it first broke, she allegedly referred to herself during this same period as the Queen of Hearts. Make of that what you will. A woman accused of shooting her sleeping husband, hiding his body, lying to police and to her own children about his whereabouts, allegedly adopting for herself the title of a queen from a children's story known best for one chilling phrase, "Off with their heads." The man she confided in became frightened. Whether it was the coldness in her voice, the detachment in how she talked about a human life, or simply the creeping realization of what he had just heard, something in him broke from whatever loyalty or entanglement had kept him quiet. He began recording their subsequent phone calls with her. He gathered text messages, and on October 2nd, 2024, he went to the police. This is the hinge point of the entire case. Without this man, without his fear finally outweighing his silence, there may have been no confession at all. No body has ever been recovered in this case. There was no smoking gun photograph, no security footage of the shooting itself. The entire foundation of the murder charge against Jennifer Gledhill rests substantially on what she allegedly told the man she was cheating with, and on the physical evidence that lined up, piece by piece, with what he described. And the physical evidence did line up. When investigators executed a search warrant on the Gledhill home, they found exactly what you would expect to find in a house where someone had allegedly tried to erase a killing. They found the master bedroom had been bleached. They found reddish-brown spots on the walls, on the bed frame, on the window blinds, the kind of staining that survives even aggressive cleaning attempts. They found a large blood stain soaked into the carpet beneath the bed, hidden directly under the frame, precisely where a body would have lain as it bled out. And they found that brand-new mattress, sitting innocently atop all of it, as if new furniture could somehow outrun forensic science. Investigators also say they found blood in a rooftop storage container, the very kind of container the informant described Jennifer using to move her husband's body. That container was later located across the county line in Davis County, and testing reportedly confirmed the blood inside matched Matthew Johnson's DNA. Prosecutors have suggested the container may have been dislodged from wherever it had been hidden by a storm, only to surface later as another piece in an already devastating puzzle. Investigators also say they observed Jennifer at a car wash, thoroughly, meticulously cleaning her vehicle in the window of time surrounding her husband's disappearance. And they say that after September 21, 2024, Jennifer never once attempted to contact her husband again. Not a call, not a text asking where he was, not the desperate, searching outreach you would expect from a genuinely worried wife. Silence, dressed up as patience, while she waited for the story about him needing space to hold. Jennifer was arrested on October 3, 2024, at 5:22 in the evening, and booked into the Salt Lake County Jail. She has been charged with murder, a first-degree felony. She has been charged with multiple counts of obstruction of justice. She has been charged with drug possession with intent to distribute. She has been charged with abuse or desecration of a dead body and with witness tampering. She has pleaded not guilty to every single one of these charges, and under the law, she remains presumed innocent unless and until a jury says otherwise. I want to be very clear about that, because that presumption of innocence is not a technicality. It is the foundation of the entire justice system, and it applies to her exactly as it would apply to any of us. But presumption of innocence does not mean the evidence disappears, and the evidence in this case is substantial enough that a judge has repeatedly denied her release, finding her both a flight risk and a continued threat to the integrity of the evidence still being gathered. If you are still with me at this point in the story, I want you to do something for me right now. Drop a comment below that says, "I'm still here." I want to see exactly how many of you are locked in, because what I am about to tell you next about her own parents is somehow even harder to process than everything you have just heard. Because Jennifer Gledhill was not, according to investigators, alone in this. Her parents, Thomas Gledhill, 71 years old, and Rosalie Gledhill, 67 years old, were arrested weeks later, in October of 2024, on suspicion of obstruction of justice. Investigators allege that Jennifer's own mother and father helped her manage the aftermath of the killing. According to search warrant affidavits, Thomas Gledhill's phone contained messages with his daughter about money, about purchases, and about, specifically, a new mattress being delivered to his home so that it could later be picked up by Jennifer. In one exchange cited in the warrants, Jennifer allegedly messaged her father asking him not to forget to give her his card information. In another, from September 18th, she allegedly told him she needed $13,000 by that Friday. Investigators say that on September 22nd, the day Jennifer is believed to have driven north to bury her husband, the only phone call she made was to her father, Thomas. Her phone then went dark for more than 2 hours before turning back on, at which point she called him again. When police asked Thomas Gledhill whether he had helped clean the master bedroom where the killing allegedly occurred, he reportedly told them he did not go into the room where the incident happened, and that he had only been at his daughter's home for less than an hour. But neighbors told a very different story, reporting that they had seen him there for more than 5 hours. His wife, Rosalie gave a nearly identical account, claiming she had only stopped by briefly to pick up clothing, again for less than an hour, while neighbors again placed her at the scene for over 5 hours. And it gets darker still. Investigators say that inside a family member's home they discovered a gun wrapped inside an infant's onesie and tucked away inside a plastic storage tote. That firearm reportedly matched the description of a weapon Jennifer had allegedly shown to the informant just days before her husband's disappearance. Think about the imagery there for a moment. A weapon connected to an alleged murder, concealed inside baby clothing, hidden by grandparents in a home where their own grandchildren likely visited. Investigators also determined that the cell phones belonging to Thomas and Rosalie Gledhill had reportedly been reset shortly before their arrest, wiped clean of whatever data might have existed on them. Thomas Gledhill was ultimately charged with 3 counts of first-degree felony obstruction of justice. Rosalie Gledhill was booked on 4 separate charges. This was not a case, according to investigators, of a daughter acting entirely alone in the moments after a killing. This was, allegedly, a family closing ranks, a mother buying a mattress to erase evidence of her own son-in-law's blood, a father managing money transfers and providing cover stories, all while 3 grandchildren were left not knowing where their father had gone, and according to court records, ordered to have no contact whatsoever with their own mother while the case proceeded. And through all of this, Matthew Johnson has never been found. Search teams have combed wetlands. They have expanded their efforts across northern Utah, into the county where Jennifer allegedly told her lover she buried him. Cadaver dogs, drones, and specialized search units have all been deployed in the effort to bring this soldier home to his children. But as of the most recent updates on this case, his remains remain missing, buried somewhere in a landscape that has, so far, refused to give him back. This absence has created ripple effects that go far beyond the criminal case itself. Because Matthew Johnson, being a member of the military, had a life insurance policy, a $500,000 policy through Prudential, and Jennifer, his wife, was the named beneficiary. With her facing murder charges, and with her husband's body still unrecovered, the insurance company found itself in an impossible position. If they paid Jennifer and she is later convicted, most legal frameworks would prevent a person from financially profiting from a murder they committed, meaning the children, who were never listed as beneficiaries at all, could then have a legal claim to that money. But if the money went straight to the children now, and Jennifer were later acquitted, she could turn around and sue for the payout herself. Rather than risk paying the wrong party and facing a second legal battle down the road, Prudential ultimately asked the courts to simply hold the money and decide who deserves it once the criminal case reaches its conclusion. $500,000, sitting frozen, waiting on a jury's verdict, a jury that has still not been selected. Because here is where this case stands right now, and it is important that you understand just how long this family, this community, and honestly all of us following along have been waiting for resolution. Jennifer Gledhill's trial has been delayed again and again. It was first scheduled for December of 2025, then it was pushed to June of 2026, and now, most recently, it has been pushed once more all the way to December of this year, with jury selection set to begin on December 7th and trial dates scheduled to run from December 8th through the 11th and again from December 14th through the 16th. That is a 7-day trial over 2 years after Matthew Johnson disappeared from his own bed, still waiting to happen. Some of these delays, according to reporting, were requested jointly by both prosecutors and defense attorneys. Others were the result of court scheduling conflicts, including one instance where the same prosecutor assigned to this case was also assigned to a separate murder trial that took scheduling priority. None of these delays are, on their own, evidence of anything sinister. Complex murder cases involving missing remains and multiple co-defendants often take years to reach trial. But for a family waiting for answers, for 3 children who have grown up years now without their father and without regular contact with their mother, each delay is another year added to a wound that has never been allowed to close. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a story that, if the allegations prove true in a court of law, is almost impossible to fully comprehend. A wife who tried to paint herself as the victim of her husband's supposed danger, only to have a judge see through it using her own words. A secret affair running quietly beneath a marriage that looked, from the outside, like any other suburban family under strain. A single argument, followed by a single night, followed by a killing that prosecutors say was carried out not in a struggle, but in his sleep, with his own weapon. A cover-up so methodical it involved a rooftop cargo container, a minivan, a shallow grave across a county line, bleach, new carpet cleaning supplies, and a brand new mattress ordered like nothing at all had happened. A confession delivered not to police, not to a priest, not even to a friend, but to the very man she had allegedly betrayed her marriage for, a man whose fear ultimately became the reason any of this came to light at all. A mother and a father, allegedly drawn into their own daughter's cover-up, hiding a weapon in baby clothing, wiping their own phones, and giving stories to police that neighbors would later contradict. And at the center of all of it, 3 children, who lost their father in September of 2024, and who may not get real answers or a body to bury, until a jury finally reaches a verdict sometime after December of this year. Jennifer Gledhill maintains her innocence. She has pleaded not guilty to every charge against her, and that plea, along with the presumption of innocence the law guarantees her, still stands until 12 jurors say otherwise. But the questions this case leaves behind are not questions the courtroom alone can answer. What does it mean when the person who is supposed to protect you is the one lying beside you in the dark? What does it mean when a family closes ranks so completely that grandparents allegedly become accomplices to protect their own daughter? And what does it mean for 3 children, who will one day be old enough to read every single word of this case for themselves, to understand exactly what their mother is accused of doing to their father, and exactly what role, if any, their grandparents played in trying to make sure no one ever found out? We do not have those answers yet. Nobody does. Not fully. Not until this trial finally happens in December, and not perhaps until the ground somewhere in northern Utah finally gives up what has been hidden inside it since a September night in 2024. If this story affected you the way it affected me while researching it, I need you to do 3 things before you leave this video. Subscribe to Brian's Criminal Unmasking, because we are going to be covering this trial in December the moment new information breaks, and you do not want to miss it. Like this video, because it tells me you want more cases unmasked exactly like this one. And comment below with your honest theory. Do you believe Jennifer Gledhill acted alone, or do you believe her family knew far more, far earlier, than any of them have ever admitted? I read every single comment, and I will see you in the next one.